The diplomatic reception hall aboard the Viridian Dawn hummed with the kind of tension that made Jackson's trigger finger itch, even though he'd left his plasma pistol in his quarters 3 decks below. Around him, representatives from 47 star systems mingled in careful orbits, their translators chirping softly as they exchanged pleasantries that meant nothing and implied everything. Jackson wasn't supposed to be here. He was a cargo hauler, a freelancer who'd taken a simple job: deliver medical supplies to the Earth Embassy ship, collect payment, and disappear back into the comfortable anonymity of deep space. But Lisa had other ideas. "You're coming to the reception," she'd told him, her brown eyes sparkling with mischief as she'd appeared at his ship's airlock. Lisa Chen, cultural attaché to the Earth delegation, had a way of making suggestions sound like imperial decrees. "I haul boxes," Jackson had protested. "Not my scene." "You'll survive. Besides, the Zalthari Queen specifically requested that all human personnel attend. Refusing would be an insult." So here he stood, wearing a borrowed dress uniform that pinched at the shoulders, nursing a glass of something that tasted like carbonated regret, watching humanity's best and brightest try not to start an interstellar incident. That's when she entered. The Zalthari delegation moved as one, a flowing mass of iridescent scales and elaborate ceremonial armor, but Jackson's eyes locked onto the figure at their center. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her skin shifting through colors that human eyes shouldn't be able to perceive, somehow managing both alien and achingly beautiful. Crystalline structures grew from her shoulders like organic jewelry, catching the light and scattering it in impossible patterns. "That's Queen Sorathi," Lisa whispered, materializing at his elbow. "Ruler of the Zalthari Consortium, 12 star systems, 4 trillion subjects, and a military that could turn Earth into a cinder before breakfast." Jackson barely heard her. He was already moving through the crowd, drawn forward by something he couldn't name and wouldn't have admitted if he could. The Queen's security detail noticed him first, 3 heavily armed warriors who positioned themselves between Jackson and their monarch with practiced precision. But Queen Sorathi raised one elegant hand, and they parted like water. Her eyes, triple-pupilled and the color of deep space, fixed on Jackson. When she spoke, her voice resonated in frequencies that made his bones vibrate. "Do you know who I am?" The translator rendered her words flat, emotionless, but Jackson caught the edge beneath them. Threat, warning, challenge. He should have bowed, should have stammered an apology, should have backed away slowly while Lisa mounted a damage control operation. Instead, Jackson grinned. "You're the sexiest alien woman in the galaxy." The reception hall went silent. Somewhere, a Corellian ambassador made a choking sound. Jackson was dimly aware of Lisa's hand clamping onto his arm like a vice, her fingernails drawing blood through the uniform sleeve. The Queen's security detail moved forward, hands on weapons. But Queen Sorathi laughed. It started as a rumble deep in her chest cavity and built into a sound that was half musical, half predatory. Her scales rippled through colors that Jackson's brain translated as pure, unfiltered amusement. "A human with courage," she said, her translator now carrying warmth. "Or stupidity. I haven't decided which." "Little of both, probably," Jackson admitted. "But I meant what I said. Your Majesty." The title came as an afterthought, and they both knew it. Queen Sorathi tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made Jackson feel like a biological specimen under analysis. "You understand that lesser species have been executed for such presumption?" "Yeah. I got that impression from your friends there." Jackson nodded toward the security detail, who looked like they were waiting for permission to disintegrate him. "And yet you speak anyway. Why?" Jackson considered the question seriously. Around them, the reception had resumed in hushed tones, but everyone was watching. He could feel Lisa's panic radiating off her in waves. Because we spent 200 years thinking we were alone in the universe, he said finally. Then we found out we weren't. Found out there were species older, smarter, more powerful than us in every way. And you know what humanity's response was? The Queen leaned closer, genuinely curious. What? We kept talking anyway, kept pushing boundaries, kept refusing to be quiet just because someone bigger told us to. Jackson met her alien gaze without flinching. Maybe it's stupidity, maybe it's courage, or maybe it's just who we are. We don't stay in our lane. For a long moment, Queen Sorathi said nothing. Then she turned to her security detail and spoke in rapid, untranslated Zalthari. They stepped back, though they looked profoundly unhappy about it. "Walk with me, human," the Queen commanded, extending one scaled arm toward the observation deck. Jackson glanced at Lisa, who had gone pale. She mouthed something that looked like, "Don't you dare," but he was already moving. As they walked through the crowd, ambassadors and dignitaries scrambling out of their path, the Queen spoke quietly. "My advisors warned me about your species, said you were dangerous, unpredictable, that you would never accept your place in the established order." "Sounds about right," Jackson agreed. "They also said you would be useful allies, if we could tolerate your insufferable arrogance. We prefer to call it confidence." The Queen's laughter rumbled again, and Jackson realized he was starting to like that sound. They reached the observation deck, where stars stretched into infinity beyond the reinforced, transparent aluminum. The Queen stood at the viewport, her reflection ghostly and magnificent against the cosmos. "Do you know why I requested all humans attend tonight?" she asked. Jackson shook his head. "Because in 3 months, the Krell Dominion will move against Earth. They see your planet as easy prey, a young species with delusions of grandeur." She turned to face him. "They don't understand what I've learned about humanity. What you just demonstrated. What's that? That humans don't need to be the strongest or the smartest to be dangerous. They only need to be stubborn enough to look at something impossible and try it anyway." Queen Sorathi's scales shifted through colors that Jackson interpreted as something like respect. "The Zalthari Consortium has decided to offer Earth a military alliance, not out of charity, but because we recognize something in your species that others miss." "And what's that?" The Queen smiled, revealing teeth designed for tearing. "That you're exactly the kind of crazy the galaxy needs." Jackson laughed, the tension of the last few minutes finally breaking. "So what happens now?" "Now?" Queen Sorathi gestured back toward the reception hall, where Lisa stood watching them with an expression caught between relief and horror. "Now you go explain to your cultural attaché why you just accidentally negotiated humanity's most important alliance by flirting with a queen who could vaporize your planet." "Fair enough," Jackson said. "But for the record, still meant what I said." The Queen's laughter followed him all the way back across the observation deck, and Jackson decided that maybe diplomatic receptions weren't so bad after all. Behind him, Queen Sorathi watched the human go, her tactical mind already calculating how this small, arrogant species would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. And despite herself, she smiled. The end.